to working in a workplace, we all like being in control and not being bossed around or being told what to do. When our friends or family members try to take our phones from us or look into our phones, we get protective and do not appreciate the fact that somebody is trying to invade our privacy. Similarly, we like to believe that we are in control of our own lives and we have the freedom and rights to do as we please as long as we follow the charter and we don't harm anyone else in the process. To know that you are being spied on or under secret surveillance of the government or big agencies like the NSA for being a suspect of terrorism or crime is a huge violation to your personal privacy. The law says that it is okay if 3 criminals are let out in the open, but 1 innocent person should never be punished. Now, one may argue that in terrorist attacks, many lives of innocent people are put at stake. But is suspecting and accusing millions or even billions of people for something that they've not done any less than that? This is where we start losing control of our lives and become suspects to our government's suspicions, which then leads into the loss of autonomy. So autonomy is freedom from external control or influence, and it's basically our independence. The promotion, protection, enjoyment of private rights is a public good. So an example of this would be homosexuality. It was looked down upon in our societies. It's a private right, and it was looked down upon in our societies for many years, and the communities in our nation. Now, with the progression and growth of our nation, we promote, protect, and allow persons to enjoy this private right and feel accepted. The Warren and Brandis article advocated for the protection of a person's inviolate personality and the fundamental right to be left alone. Your right to be left alone is a personal and private right. There is no principle of law, no constitution principle, and no Supreme Court ruling which can move that line. It can only be your choice to give up this right. So does the public at any point consent to be massively surveilled by the government? So the government does not ask for permission, but does what they need to because they must. We should at least be able to make sure that we can feel secure and safe in any kind of personal space, whether it be at homes or educational institutions like schools or universities. Where exactly does the government start targeting? So suppose if person A searched how to make a bomb and person B searched what is a bomb. So person A would be a suspect to the government's search engine, in their search engines to the government, because they're searching how to make a bomb. And this is only one person. So if millions or thousands of people search this through all the countries around the world, then the number leads into billions. This is where metadata comes in, which is data about data and millions of bits of data. So it's hard to sift through all this data and pin down who exactly is planning terrorist attacks, who their supervisor is, who their commander is, and where they want to attack and what we do about it. If this does not work, then why do we need to discuss this question over and over again? If we allow for the government to continue to keep a look on us for being suspicious persons, when will we ever be able to step away from blind obedience? When can we as citizens demand transparency regarding our fundamental rights and freedoms from our government? According to an article published by the New York Times in 2014, it was written that 97% of tests performed to see if they could protect people from terrorist attacks in the United States have failed. Also seen through an article posted by the Huffington Post, the TSA failed 95% of airport security tests conducted by Homeland Security in June of 2015. The government never really has a middle ground. And if the United States is one of the biggest, most powerful, and influential democracies who essentially have nearly unlimited resources, and if they were not able to protect their citizens from terrorist attacks, how can we expect, and it's actually highly unrealistic to imagine that smaller, less powerful countries, like Canada actually, would be able to protect their citizens from terrorist attacks. And after the first terrorist attack in Canada, others followed. So essentially, our government's plans to protect us have not been a success either. The idea of the loss of autonomy can also lead into cyber terrorism. So defined as the politically motivated use of computers and information technology to cause severe disruption or widespread fear in society. In their paper, Jimmy Scrolls and Will Byers said, by the use of the internet, the terrorists can affect a much wider damage or change to a country than one could by killing some people. From disabling a country's military defenses to shutting off large power in an area. The terrorists can affect more people at less risk than through other means. Cyber terrorists can endanger the security of a nation by targeting sensitive information, by stealing, disclosing, or destroying. Before the 9/11, a number of exercises identified apparent vulnerabilities in the computers of the United States military and their energy sectors. After the 9/11, the security and terrorism discourse soon featured cyber terrorism prominently. Cyber terrorism is to sure be an attractive option for modern terrorists who value its anonymity, its potential to inflict massive damage, its psychological impact, and its media appeal. So there are no physical barriers or no checkpoints for cyber terrorists to cross. They can do it remotely from anywhere in the world, and they can use this method to attack a big number of target and affect a large number of people. So cyber terrorism can essentially lead into physical terrorism because cyber terrorism is the worst kind of terrorism. It is the worst kind of breach in privacy. Peter Fascinelli said that we've always had to worry about the electric grid and nuclear facilities that remain constant. But cyber terrorism, you know, is a word you hear more and more, and I think it is now a reality. Cyber terrorism and loss of autonomy can also lead into a huge problem of racial profiling. So racial profiling is the use of a race or ethnicity as grounds for suspecting someone of having committed an offense. A common concern in our community is of facing increased deprivations of liberty and future, or that person's names may end up on lists which result in a loss of privacy and further incidents of questioning or worse. The issue of racial profiling forces us to make decisions between privacy and equality, and this was said by our Deputy Justice Minister Morris Rosenberg during a conference of security and intelligence. So racial profiling violates our fundamental right of privacy and can be led into a snowball effect. So a snowball effect is a process that starts from an initial state of significance and builds upon itself. And also perhaps it becomes larger and more dangerous and potentially disastrous. It can so cyber terrorism, autonomy, and racial profiling can become the reason for physical terrorism in our country. After the 9/11, it was said that there was an increase in racial and ethnic profiling. This is not only in the United States, but in all countries around the world, including Canada. To sum up my argument on the loss of control, which includes the loss of autonomy, cyber terrorism, and racial profiling, I would like to finish off with Gihad Ali's quote, and he said that I am terrorized in my own land, but yet I'm the terrorist. Thank you. I was going to read this for a second. I
Like I'm kind of nervous because all they do is math. I'm like, yo, they better understand that. All they do is math. Sir, do we have a commentary again? Do we have our opinion? Stop joking. I talked to them. I have I'll start rapping. And then I'll go back to and then and like I was saying, what am I doing? Like all friends. I have been great. What's that? Arbok? When you're ready for it? Donnie's class. No, they always say, hey students. Hey Donnie. I want to say hey Donnie.
Okay, let's hear your closings.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say that our main point is that privacy isn't the root of terrorism. Rather, it's about how the world is becoming less private, and why not use that information for the greater good of everybody's safety. Yes, the government is not really secure, but actually what really is fully secure? In reality, you would feel safer knowing that the government has your information instead of these sort of apps. In addition, they also said about how person A would be looking up a bomb, how to make a bomb, and person B would be looking up what's in a bomb. Person B doesn't get in trouble for searching up what's in a bomb, rather person A would get in trouble because person A is a threat to all of everybody's safety. Person B in general, they would just be taking one for the team. And lastly, to rebut what they said, governments have been success. General Keith Alexander stated that info from prison programs exposed by Snowden with leaks helped prevent potential terrorists in 26 countries. So because of what the government had in information, they were able to remove these terrorist threats and get rid of them, putting them in jail before anything actually ever happened. So at the end of the day, this debate comes down to public safety against terrorism to the protection of privacy. If you were to ask anybody, many people would say that they value their lives very much and would put that sort of physical safety over that sort of privacy. Many people are scared of terrorists, but yet they're still unwilling to give up their privacy for protection. Why would this be an exception? The government only wants the best for its people, even if the people don't agree with what they're doing. With the way social media is going, and considering many of the users are in their teens, it shows that they do not mind giving up that sort of personal information. This is the way that the world is heading. With less privacy, it is heading the right way. No one can be at fault with this new generation being so willing to give up that sort of personal information. Some would think everyone wants a perfect utopian society. This society would be one where people are fully safe from terrorists, and yet it's fully private. But yet, realistically, this isn't the case. People tend to take advantage of this sort of privacy and like to do things behind the scenes, and that's a risk for other people. Crimes can be planned out behind these scenes because of that full sort of privacy. Human nature just tends to take advantage of anything you give them. To add on to that, with full privacy, considering humans are social creatures, they'd be giving up their privacy anyway just by talking to others. The upcoming generation displays this social human nature, and it is ideal for the later governments. Like, people shouldn't be afraid to give up their privacy in order to get protection from the government. Like, the government is only trying to do what's best for its people, and people actually just gotta believe in that. You can't just doubt the government because of leaks. The government is trying to always do what's good for everybody. If the government is so weak, then why not give this sort of personal information so that you can help them be stronger, and so that you can be safe from anything that threatens your life. All in all, the government is just trying to protect these citizens, and it's for their own benefit. So why not trust the process? Like, you don't have to worry about terrorists anymore when the government has your back. That's what governments are always aiming for, and what you should believe in too.
You don't have to say it. It's already lost.
Don't try that. Do you like misogynist or what? It's kind of sensible at night. I want to know that that's a butter. That's how I live.
You'll get lost in yourselves.
It's not gonna make a difference.
Okay, we're gonna hear Priya's closing, and that will end the debate.
So in their opening, my opponents stated that they do support privacy, but believe that the government should protect the citizens. They said in one of their earlier points that the root of terrorism is because of privacy and taking advantage of that privacy, and then they changed their point to we do not think that the root of terrorism is privacy, but it's taking advantage of privacy. And by saying that we lose privacy by providing people with our personal information through purchases or downloads, you are essentially proving our point that privacy must be protected in order to stop or reduce higher level crimes. You said that you can't doubt the government because of leaks, and you don't have to worry about terrorism when the government has our back. Well, how can you do that if the government cannot protect them? How can we ensure that the government can protect us if it's not even sure that they can protect themselves? And why not, you said why not give them information so that they become stronger if they are weak? Well, how is it not possible that people associated with terrorists are not a part of the government? To conclude this controversial and some say trade-off debate, my partner and I stand firm on our point that the value and protection of privacy over public safety against terrorism. Our opponents have failed to prove their point and at times have ended up contradicting themselves. We have provided valid evidence and arguments to prove why our side of the debate prevails. The protection of basic and social privacy, allowing citizens to be in control of their lives and having autonomy, protection from cyber terrorism and racial profiling is the first step towards the protection of the nation as a whole. And individuals or persons of specific ethnic groups or religious groups' identity is lost when personal information is accessed through surfing the web, downloading apps, or using various social media sites. And that can be used by criminals to perform high-level crimes, and individuals who are victims of this can be victims of identity fraud and theft. This further leads to racial profiling in society. Representatives of Muslim, Arab, and South Asian communities in our country, pointed out that one of the chief complaints they have is being treated as a community to be looked into rather than being invited to help solve a problem. Also, when humans begin to lose control of their lives by being kept an eye on by the government, they begin to lose faith in our country and in the so-called government that they are being protected by. When us citizens are affected by the worst kind of terrorism, being cyber terrorism, doesn't it have worse effects on citizens as opposed to physical terrorism? The essence of democracy and freedom is that the government works for us, we do not work for them. Nisha Akwil, a debater who was in support of privacy versus public safety against terrorism, said in one of her debates that security has always been a reactionary value. One that develops when you think that liberties are under attack, And security should be based on reason, not fear. If terrorist attacks continue to take place, then the efficacy of the program to protect us from these attacks and these threats fails entirely. Freedom and privacy have always been the cornerstones of any society that prides itself in thinking that we are a civilized society. The government has created a deep, secret government and sworn everyone there into their secrecy. When will we as citizens ever be let in? Thank you.
Okay, we'll entertain a couple questions from the crowd, if you have any. John Jay has been itching to ask a question, so is it directed to okay, so you just tell them.
Okay, so the question is, you guys talked a lot about how people give their information to apps and all that. So what is the difference between willingly giving your information to play a game that you're going to delete in 2 seconds and giving your information to the government that's actually using it for something positive? Like, how much privacy is enough privacy?
No, like we're not
That's
saying
your point.
don't provide your information, but do not provide accurate information. Protect your own
It's a
privacy.
lie.
No, like, you can't ensure that the government's actually protecting you.
But
When can you ensure that the government's protecting itself?
okay, but the government is using this information to, they're not going and selling your information to somebody else, which these companies, no, but
But there
like,
can be people
That's
in the
a good
government that
point,
are.
Silas. That's, he answered
what,
for
you
you.
don't know that?
Yeah, you don't
Okay,
know
but
that.
who are you gonna sell it to?
Other countries, you don't, how do you know
Okay,
they're not
but that's
selling
not
it
the
though?
thing.
But there will always be
They're
people,
okay, they're gonna sell my information.
Yeah.
in the
The thing
You're not
is,
going into it thinking, oh, they're gonna sell my information, like, they're asking for your information, but
no,
like,
but you
so-
have to think about it logically too. When has the government ever been able to protect us from these attacks? The efficacy of the whole program has always failed, and this question is always asked over and over again. So it doesn't make sense for you to be thinking that the government can protect you when every time that they say they will, it's never actually happened. You're always sacrificing your personal privacy for the community, like our nation as a whole.
But like, is there such thing as too much privacy? To the point where it's a law or something, it's a legal thing to
But
be
when
like,
can we even think about that when we don't even have
privacy at all.
privacy?
so you're saying basically that there should be no like terms and agreement, there should be like no fine
No,
print.
obviously we stated that we should, obviously we stated that we should be following the charter and we should be given at least the fundamental rights and freedoms that we should have as citizens. And violating privacy is one of the most major, going against one of the most major points of the charter.
He's answering your question.
Oh,
You
sorry.
can't talk about it. Does anyone have a question for the other team? No?
That's how good we were at the
Are
meeting.
you guys,
No one had a question. That's how good we were at the meeting.
Right, you guys just
I'm still talking.
Okay, thank you very much. Excellent job, everybody.
good job.
What's about it? Yeah, this is.
Mateo, could you,